She was just supposed to kiss him. A dare. 10 seconds of borrowed courage in a crowded club where the strobe lights turned everyone into strangers. But when her lips touched his, when she felt the Korean Mafia king's entire body go rigid beneath her touch, when she saw something crack behind those cold, dark eyes, she realized she hadn't just kissed a man. She'd woken a monster. And now he was hunting her. Before we dive into this emotional journey, if you're enjoying these stories of unexpected love and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. The bass pounded through Club Exodus like a second heartbeat, turning the air thick and electric. Ji-woo Park pressed her back against the bathroom wall, staring at her reflection in the smudged mirror, and wondered, not for the first time tonight, what the hell she was trying to prove. Her roommate's voice echoed in her head, "You're too safe, Ji-woo. You're 22 and you've never done anything crazy. When you're old, you'll have nothing to tell your grandchildren except, I studied hard and played by the rules." The bathroom door burst open, and Hannah stumbled in, already 3 drinks deep, her eyes wild with mischief. "There you are. Everyone's waiting. Are you really going to do it?" Ji-woo's stomach twisted. The dare. Kiss a stranger. Not just any stranger. Kiss the most dangerous-looking man in the club and walk away like it meant nothing. "I don't know if..." "You said you wanted to stop being invisible," Hannah cut her off, grabbing her shoulders. "You said you were tired of being the quiet scholarship girl who everyone forgets. This is your moment." Ji-woo looked at herself again. Plain black dress. Minimal makeup. Hair in a simple ponytail. She looked exactly like what she was, a graduate student who didn't belong in places like this, where the Seoul elite came to sin. But maybe that was the point. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll do it." Hannah squealed, dragging her back into the chaos. The VIP section glowed like a separate universe above the dance floor, cordoned off by velvet ropes and men in black suits who looked like they'd kill you for breathing wrong. "Him," Hannah breathed, pointing. Ji-woo's heart stopped. He sat alone in the center of the VIP booth, surrounded by people who didn't dare sit too close. Even from a distance, his presence was suffocating. Dark suit fitted perfectly to broad shoulders, sharp jawline, eyes that seemed to see through the crowd's pretense to the rot beneath. He held a glass of whiskey but didn't drink, just watched the room like a predator assessing prey. "That's Kang Min-Jun," someone whispered nearby. "The Ice King. Head of the Kang family. I heard he killed a man with his bare hands for looking at him wrong. I heard he hates women. Hasn't touched one in 5 years." Ji-woo's pulse hammered in her throat. This was insane. This was suicide. This was exactly the kind of story she wanted to tell. Across the club, Kang Min-Jun felt the weight of eyes on him and ignored it. He always felt watched, worshipped, feared, desired from a distance that he maintained with careful cruelty. The club was a weekly necessity, a place to be seen, to remind Seoul's underworld that the Kang family's power didn't sleep. But he felt nothing here. Not the music's pulse, not the beauty of the women who tried to catch his attention, not the fear in the eyes of men who owed him money. He'd felt nothing for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. It was better this way. Safer. His second-in-command, Jae, leaned in. "Sir, the shipment from Busan." "Handle it," Min-Jun said flatly. "I don't want to hear about logistics tonight." Jae nodded and retreated. Everyone always retreated from him eventually. Min-Jun raised the whiskey to his lips, not to drink but to give himself something to do with his hands, when he saw her. A girl in a plain black dress, moving through the crowd with the determination of someone doing something terrifying. She wasn't like the others here, no designer labels, no practiced seduction. She looked like she'd wandered in from a library. She was walking toward him. His men noticed, stepping forward to intercept, but Min-Jun raised one finger. "Stop." Something about her interested him. Maybe the way her hands trembled even as her spine stayed straight. Maybe the fact that she was clearly terrified but coming anyway. She reached the velvet rope. The guard moved to block her, but Min-Jun spoke, his voice carrying despite the music. "Let her through." The crowd parted. She climbed the 3 steps to the VIP section, and Min-Jun saw her properly now, dark eyes too wide, full lips pressed tight with determination, the kind of delicate beauty that didn't know it was beautiful. She stopped in front of him. The entire club seemed to hold its breath. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking but clear. Min-Jun leaned back, intrigued despite himself. "Speak." She leaned down, her hair falling forward, her breath warm against his ear. For a moment, he thought she was going to whisper some message, some plea or proposition. Instead, she kissed him. It was clumsy and brief and tasted like cherry lip gloss and courage. Her lips pressed against his for maybe 5 seconds, an eternity and an instant. Then she pulled back, and Min-Jun saw her eyes up close, terrified and alive and already regretting everything. She turned to run. His hand shot out, catching her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough that she froze. Their eyes met. And for the first time in 3 years, 2 months and 16 days, Kang Min-Jun felt something crack open inside his chest, something he thought he'd killed a long time ago. "What's your name?" His voice came out rough, almost desperate. She yanked her wrist free, stumbled backward, and ran. Min-Jun didn't follow. Not yet. He sat frozen as she disappeared into the crowd, his lips still burning from her touch, his hands still warm from her skin. Jay appeared at his side, concerned. Sir, should we stop her? Get security too. Find her, Min-Jun said quietly. I want to know everything. Her name. Where she lives. Where she studies. Everything. Yes, sir. As Jay hurried away, Min-Jun touched his lips, feeling something he'd forgotten existed, hunger. Not for power or revenge or control. For her. Have you ever done something reckless that changed your life? What was the moment you realized you couldn't take it back? Share your story in the comments. Ji-woo made it 3 blocks before her legs gave out. She collapsed onto a bench at a bus stop, her entire body shaking so violently she had to grip the metal armrest to steady herself. The Seoul night air bit at her flushed skin, but she barely felt it over the roar of adrenaline still flooding her veins. What did I just do? Her lips still tingled. She could still feel the moment of contact, the shock of his mouth against hers, warm and firm and utterly still. For those 5 seconds, the most dangerous man in Seoul had been frozen beneath her touch, and she'd felt powerful. Now she just felt insane. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, she whispered into her hands. Her phone buzzed with texts from Hannah, but she couldn't look. Couldn't think. Could barely breathe. The number 74 bus pulled up, and she stumbled aboard on autopilot, collapsing into a seat at the back. Through the window, Club Exodus glowed in the distance, and she imagined him still sitting there, untouchable and cold. Except he hadn't been cold when she kissed him. For just a moment, she'd felt him go rigid, not with anger, but with something else. Something raw. Then his hand on her wrist. The way he'd looked at her. What's your name? Not angry. Not disgusted. Hungry. Ji-woo pressed her forehead against the cool glass and tried to convince herself she'd never see him again. Seoul was massive. He was a king in a world she'd never touch again. By tomorrow, she'd be just another face in his club, another moment he'd forget. She almost believed it. Min-Jun sat in the back of his Mercedes, watching the city blur past, and felt like a man coming out of anesthesia, every nerve ending screaming back to life after years of numbness. His driver knew better than to speak. Jay sat beside him, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with the club's security team. We have her on 4 cameras, Jay reported quietly. She left alone, heading east on foot. Team is pulling traffic footage now. We'll have an ID within the hour. Min-Jun nodded, but said nothing. His fingers drummed against his thigh, a nervous habit he'd broken years ago, now suddenly returned. He could still taste her. Cherry and fear and something sweeter underneath. Something innocent. The kiss itself had been nothing, clumsy brief, the kind of kiss teenagers gave on dares. But it was the why that haunted him. She'd been terrified. He'd seen it in every line of her body. Yet she'd done it anyway. When was the last time anyone had approached him without calculation? Without wanting something beyond what that moment offered? When was the last time anyone had touched him like he was just a man? Sir, Jay said carefully, may I ask what you want done when we find her? It was a fair question. In their world, uninvited touches often ended in blood. People who grabbed the Ice King didn't walk away. But Min-Jun didn't want blood. He wanted to know why his chest felt like it was caving in. Why her taste lingered like a drug he hadn't known he needed. Why, for the first time since his mother's betrayal shattered him, he wanted something beyond revenge and power. He wanted her. Nothing yet, he said finally. Just find her. Watch her. I want to know who she is. And then. Min-Jun looked out at Seoul's glittering skyline, a city he owned piece by piece, built on fear and money and blood. Everything in his world could be bought, controlled, or destroyed. But she'd kissed him and run away. She hadn't wanted anything from him. That made her either very stupid or very dangerous. Either way, she was his now. She just didn't know it yet. Then I'll decide if she lives or dies, he said softly. It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it sounded like a promise. Ji-woo's apartment was a shoebox in Hongdae, one room split between a bed, a desk drowning in research papers, and a kitchenette that barely fit a hot plate. She loved it because it was hers, paid for by her scholarship and weekend tutoring jobs. She locked the door behind her and immediately stripped off the black dress, shoving it into the back of her closet like evidence. In the bathroom mirror, she looked wild-eyed and flushed, her lips slightly swollen. He touched me. Not violently. Not cruelly. His hand on her wrist had been almost gentle, a question, not a command. She splashed cold water on her face and tried to wash away the memory. This was done. A stupid dare, a story to tell, a moment of insanity that would fade into embarrassment by morning. Her phone lit up. Hannah, girl, you are legendary. Everyone is talking about it. The Ice King looked like you electrocuted him. Then, Hannah, but seriously, are you okay? That was insane even for you. Ji-woo typed back, I'm fine. Never doing anything like that again. Deleting that night from my memory. Asterisk Hannah, good. Because I just heard from Miho who knows a guy who works security there. They're asking about you. They're trying to find out who you are. Ji-woo's blood turned to ice. No. No no no. Jiwo, what do you mean asking about me? Hana, like, the Kang family is looking for you. The girl who kissed their boss. Ji-woo, I think you need to be careful. These aren't normal people. These are dangerous people. The phone slipped from Ji-woo's trembling hands, clattering against the bathroom tile. He was looking for her. The Korean Mafia king was hunting her down because of a 5-second kiss. She thought of his eyes, dark and empty, and then suddenly, terrifyingly alive when he looked at her. The way he'd said, "What's your name?" Like he'd die if he didn't know. Ji-woo slid down the bathroom wall, hugging her knees to her chest, and tried to convince herself this was still just a story she could walk away from. But deep down, in the part of her that had felt his hand on her wrist and seen the hunger in his eyes, she knew the truth. She'd kissed a monster. And now the monster wanted her back. Min-Jun stood in his penthouse overlooking Seoul, a glass of whiskey finally making it to his lips. The burn felt good, familiar, grounding. His phone buzzed, a text from Jay with a photo attached. Park Ji-woo. Age 22. Graduate student, Seoul National University. Psychology major. Scholarship recipient. Lives in Hongdae. No criminal record. No family connections. No debt to any organizations. Below the details was a photo, her university ID picture. She looked younger there, more innocent, her smile small and uncertain. Park Ji-woo. He said her name aloud, testing it. It felt right in his mouth. Min-Jun enlarged the photo, studying her face. What had possessed her to kiss him? A dare, probably. Some foolish game played by college girls who didn't understand that games in his world had permanent consequences. She'd looked at him like he was just a man. Not a king. Not a monster. Just a man worth kissing on a dare. His reflection stared back at him from the darkened window. Sharp suit, sharper edges, eyes that hadn't softened in years. He'd built this version of himself carefully, killing every weak thing inside until nothing remained but ice and iron. One kiss shouldn't have shattered that. But it had. And now he had a choice. Let her go and rebuild his walls, or pursue her and risk feeling everything he'd sworn never to feel again. Min-Jun looked at her photo one more time, those wide honest eyes that had been terrified but brave, and made his decision. He would find her. Know her. Possess her. And maybe, if she could survive his world, he'd let her save him. Or destroy him. He didn't care which anymore. Ji-woo didn't sleep. She lay in bed watching the ceiling, every car sound outside making her flinch, every shadow under her door sending her heart racing. At 3 a.m., she finally admitted defeat and opened her laptop, typing Kang Min-Jun into the search bar with shaking fingers. The results painted a portrait of a ghost. There were no interviews. No social media. Just whispers in news articles that never quite named him, a prominent businessman connected to real estate deals, a person of interest in cases that mysteriously went cold, a representative of the Kang family at high-profile funerals. But the comments sections told the real story. My cousin worked at a club he owned. She smiled at him once. Once. He had her fired and blacklisted from every establishment in Gangnam. The Ice King doesn't do relationships. Doesn't do women. Hasn't been seen with anyone since his ex-fiancée disappeared 5 years ago. If you cross the Kang family, you don't get a second chance. You just disappear. Ji-woo slammed the laptop shut, her stomach churning. What had she done? This wasn't a story anymore. This wasn't some romantic tale of a bad boy with a secret heart of gold. This was a man who destroyed people, who built empires on fear, who hated women and had the power to make her vanish if she annoyed him. And she'd kissed him like he was just some guy at a club. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Unknown, we need to talk. Ji-woo's hands went numb. She stared at the message, her breathing shallow. Unknown, I know you're awake. I know you're scared. But I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to understand why. Unknown, meet me tomorrow. 2 p.m. The cafe across from Seoul National's main library. Come alone. Unknown, please. That last word, please, sent a chill down her spine. Men like Kang Min-Jun didn't say please. They commanded and expected obedience. Which meant he wanted something from her badly enough to ask. Ji-woo's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every rational cell in her body screamed to delete the messages, change her number, maybe transfer to a university in another country. But a smaller, reckless voice, the same one that had made her accept the dare, whispered, you wanted to stop being invisible. You wanted a story worth telling. Be careful what you wish for. She typed back, how did you get my number? The response was immediate, I can get anything I want, Ji-woo. Your number is nothing. But your answer, that's something I can't take. That has to be given. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. He probably knew everything, her address, her schedule, her scholarship status, her favorite coffee order. Jiwo, I'm not meeting a stranger. Unknown, we're not strangers anymore. You kissed me. That makes us something. Jiwo, that makes us nothing. It was a dare. A stupid mistake. Can you please just forget it happened? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The pause stretched so long Ji-woo thought he'd given up. Then, I've tried. I can't. Something about those 3 words, their raw simplicity, made her chest tighten. Unknown, 2 p.m. tomorrow. I'll be in the corner booth. If you don't come, I'll respect that. But I think you will. Because you're curious too. Unknown, sleep well, Ji-woo. The messages stopped. Ji-woo sat in the darkness, her phone warm in her hands, and realized he was right. She was curious. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Min-Jun sat in his home office, watching the 3 dots that indicated she was typing, then stopping, then typing again. When her response finally came, asking how he got her number, he almost smiled. She was smart enough to be afraid, but brave enough to question him anyway. Most people just obeyed. Jay stood by the door, having delivered the preliminary report on Park Ji-woo. Sir, with respect, is this wise? She's a civilian. No connections to our world. Getting involved with her could create complications. Then it's a good thing I'm not asking your permission, Min-Jun said softly. Jay knew that tone. He bowed slightly and retreated, closing the door behind him. Min-Jun looked at Ji-woo's university ID photo again, then at the security footage from the club that showed her approaching him, shoulders back, chin up, terrified but determined. No one approached him like that. No one dared. He'd spent 5 years building walls so high that nothing could touch him. After Sejin's betrayal, after discovering that his fiancée had been planted by a rival family, that every smile and touch had been a lie, that even her love was just another weapon aimed at his heart, he'd sworn never to be vulnerable again. Women were liars. Manipulators. They wore masks of sweetness while plotting your destruction. He'd made himself untouchable. Unfeeling. Safe. Then this girl, this reckless ordinary girl, had kissed him on a dare, and suddenly he could feel everything again. The loneliness. The hunger. The desperate, aching need to be touched like he mattered beyond his name and power. Ji-woo walked to his table on legs that felt borrowed, each step an act of will. The cafe buzzed with student chatter and espresso machines, but all she could hear was her own pulse thundering in her ears. Min-Jun stood as she approached, a gesture so unexpectedly polite it made her stumble slightly. Up close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He looked like a man who hadn't slept either. You came, he said softly. I'm curious why you couldn't just forget about it, Ji-woo replied, proud that her voice only shook a little. She slid into the booth across from him, putting as much distance between them as the small table allowed. So am I. He sat back down, his dark eyes never leaving her face. I've been asking myself that for 18 hours. A barista appeared. Can I get you anything? Café latte, Ji-woo said automatically. Make it 2, Min-Jun added, though his untouched black coffee suggested he had no intention of drinking either one. The barista left, and silence settled between them like fog. Ji-woo forced herself to meet his gaze. I'm sorry. For the kiss. It was a dare, stupid and reckless. I shouldn't have touched you without permission. A dare, he repeated, his voice flat. Yes. My roommate said I was too careful, too boring, and I wanted to prove her wrong. You were just there. I didn't know who you were. I swear I didn't know. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. And now that you do know? Now I'm terrified, she said honestly. I've read about you. About your family. About what happens to people who cross you. Yet you came anyway. You said please. The words came out before she could stop them. Men like you don't say please. Min-Jun leaned forward, and Ji-woo's instinct screamed to lean back. But she held her ground, refusing to show more fear than she already had. You don't know anything about men like me, he said quietly. If you did, you'd be running. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought. The ghost of a smile touched his lips, there and gone so fast she might have imagined it. No. You're smart enough to be afraid. Just not smart enough to let fear stop you. That's either brave or suicidal. Which do you think it is? I haven't decided yet. The barista returned with 2 lattes, the foam forming perfect hearts. Min-Jun glanced at his cup, and something in his expression shuddered. He pushed it aside. Ji-woo wrapped her hands around her own cup, grateful for something to hold. What do you want from me? Really? I want to understand why I can still taste you. The bluntness made her cheeks burn. It was just a kiss. It wasn't. Not to me. He looked at her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. I haven't felt anything in 5 years. Nothing. No anger, no joy, no desire. I was dead inside, and I preferred it that way. Safer. Simpler. What happened 5 years ago? His jaw tightened. That's not your concern. Then why am I here? Because when you kissed me, something woke up. Something I thought I'd killed. He reached across the table, not touching her but close enough that she could feel the heat of his hand near hers. And I need to know if it was real or if you're just another lie wrapped in a pretty face. Ji-woo's heart cracked at the raw pain in his voice. This wasn't the Ice King. This was just a man, wounded and desperate and trying not to show it. I'm not a lie, she whispered. I'm just a graduate student who did something stupid. Prove it. How? Spend time with me. Let me know you. If you're telling the truth, if you're really just an ordinary girl, then maybe I can put you behind me and go back to being numb. But if you run, if you hide, I'll always wonder. And I'm not good at living with questions. It sounded reasonable. Almost safe. But Ji-woo saw the trap. He wasn't asking for time. He was asking for access. And once she gave him that, there would be no clean exit. And if I say no? Min-Jun was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll let you go. I won't follow you. Won't contact you. You'll never see me again. She should say no. Should thank whatever gods had kept her alive this long and walk away while she still could. But the part of her that had accepted the dare, the part that was tired of being invisible, whispered, "When will you ever feel this alive again?" "How much time?" she asked. "A week. 7 days. If after that you still want nothing to do with me, I'll disappear from your life." Just talking? Getting to know each other? Yes. No mafia stuff. No danger. No people getting hurt because of me. You have my word. Ji-woo almost laughed. The word of a crime lord. How reassuring. This time, he definitely smiled. Small and bitter, but real. It's all I have to offer. She should say no. She was going to say no. 1 week, she heard herself say. But we meet in public places. During daylight. And if I want to leave at any point, you let me go. Agreed. He pulled out his phone. Your number. The real one this time, not the one you're planning to change tomorrow. Reluctantly, Ji-woo rattled off the digits. His phone buzzed in her pocket seconds later, a text from his number, day 1. I have class until 5, she said. And a study group after. Cancel the study group. No. My education isn't. Then I'll wait. He said it simply, like waiting for her was as natural as breathing. Send me your schedule. I'll work around it. This is insane. Yes, he agreed. But you're still here. And that was the problem, wasn't it? Despite everything, the fear, the danger, the absolute certainty that this would end badly, she was still here. Still curious about the man beneath the monster. Still wondering what it meant that her kiss had cracked his armor. 1 week, she repeated, standing. Her latte sat untouched, cooling. Then you forget about me. 1 week, Min-Jun echoed. But the way he looked at her, hungry and possessive and already obsessed, made it clear he had no intention of forgetting. She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her, Ji-woo. She turned. Thank you. For coming. For giving me this. The gratitude in his voice was so unexpected, so genuinely human, that it terrified her more than any threat could have. Because monsters were easy to run from. But a lonely man who'd forgotten how to feel? That was dangerous in ways she didn't have defenses for. Min-Jun watched her leave, forcing himself to stay seated when every instinct screamed to follow. Jay appeared from a table near the window where he'd been pretending to read a newspaper. She agreed. 1 week. And then I'll know if she's real or if I'm losing my mind. Min-Jun finally looked at the latte with its foam heart, already dissolving. Make sure she gets home safely. Discreetly. I don't want her to know she's being watched. Sir, respectfully, what's the endgame here? She's a civilian. Getting attached to her could be used against you. Against us. Min-Jun knew Jay was right. In their world, caring about someone was handing your enemies a loaded gun and showing them exactly where to aim. But he'd been safe for 5 years. Safe and dead inside. He'd take dangerous and alive over that any day. The endgame, Min-Jun said slowly, is figuring out if one kiss can save a man, or if it's just another way to destroy him. And if it's the latter? Min-Jun thought about Ji-woo's trembling hands wrapped around her coffee cup, the way she'd been terrified but stayed anyway, the honesty in her eyes when she'd admitted she didn't know who he was. Then at least I'll have felt something real before the end. Ji-woo made it back to her apartment before the panic attack hit. She locked the door, slid down against it, and tried to remember how to breathe. 1 week. She'd agreed to spend 1 week with the Korean Mafia king because he'd said please, and looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for years. Her phone buzzed. MINJUN, your study group. Where and when? JIWO, why? MINJUN, because I'm working around your schedule. Remember? JIWO, you can't just show up to my study group. MINJUN, I'm not showing up. I'm asking so I know when you're free after. JIWO, 7 to 9 p.m. University Library, 3rd floor. MINJUN, I'll pick you up at 9. We'll get dinner. JIWO, I don't think. MINJUN, day 1 isn't over yet, Ji-woo. And I'm curious what you're like when you're not terrified of me. JIWO, bold of you to assume I'll stop being terrified. MINJUN, I can hope. Ji-woo stared at her phone, at this surreal conversation with a man who could probably have her killed with a phone call, and wondered if she just made the best or worst decision of her life. Her phone buzzed again. Minjun, for what it's worth, I'm terrified too. JIWO, of what? Minjun, that you're real. That this feeling is real. That I'm going to care about you and you're going to destroy me like everyone else. Minjun, but I'm doing it anyway. Minjun, so maybe we're both suicidal. Despite everything, the fear, the insanity, the danger, Ji-woo smiled. JIWO, maybe we are. She sent it before she could overthink, then immediately regretted it when his response came. Minjun, then we'll be suicidal together. Minjun, see you at 9, Park Ji-woo. And somehow, impossibly, she was looking forward to it. Ji-woo couldn't focus on her study group. Professor Kim's voice droned on about neural pathways and cognitive restructuring, but all she could think about was the text sitting in her phone. See you at 9, Park Ji-woo. Earth to Ji-woo, Hannah whispered, nudging her. You've been staring at the same page for 20 minutes. Sorry. Tired. Tired or thinking about tall, dark, and homicidal. Ji-woo's head snapped up. I'm not. You met him, didn't you? Hannah's eyes went wide. Oh my god, you actually went to that cafe. Can we not do this here? We're absolutely doing this here. Hannah grabbed her arm, pulling her away from their study materials. Start talking. Now. Ji-woo glanced around the library's third floor, students hunched over laptops, the soft rustle of pages turning. Normal. Safe. Everything her life had been before one stupid kiss. He just wants to talk, she said quietly. To understand why I kissed him. I agreed to spend a week with him, in public during the day, and then he'll leave me alone. A week with the Ice King. Do you hear yourself? Do you hear how insane that sounds? I know how it sounds. Then why? Because he asked, Hannah. He didn't demand or threaten. He asked. And when I said I was terrified, he said he was too. Ji-woo's voice dropped to barely a whisper. What if everyone's wrong about him? What if underneath all that ice, he's just broken? Hannah stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Ji-woo, this isn't one of your psychology case studies. You can't fix him. Men like that don't get fixed, they destroy everyone who tries. I'm not trying to fix him. I'm just trying to understand. That's how it starts. Understanding. Then empathy. Then you're in love with a monster and can't remember how you got there. Hannah squeezed her hand. Please be careful. Please. I will. I promise. But even as she said it, Ji-woo knew she was lying. Careful would have been never going to that cafe. Careful would have been blocking his number and transferring schools. This, whatever this was the opposite of careful. At 8:55 p.m., Ji-woo packed her books with trembling hands. Through the library's floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the Mercedes parked below, dark and sleek and impossible to miss. He'd come himself. Not sent a driver. Actually come. She descended the library steps and found him leaning against the car, phone in hand, wearing a long black coat that made him look like something out of a dark fairy tale. When he saw her, he pocketed the phone and straightened. You came, he said, and she heard the surprise in his voice, like he genuinely believed she might run. I said I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean. He opened the car door for her. Hungry. Ji-woo hesitated. Getting in that car felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. But she'd already crossed it, hadn't she? The moment she'd agreed to this week. She slid into the back seat. The leather was soft, the interior immaculate and smelling faintly of expensive cologne. Min-Jun settled beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the heat of him. Where are we going? She asked as the driver pulled away from the curb. Somewhere quiet. Where we can talk without an audience. You said public places. It's a restaurant. Very public. Just, exclusive. He glanced at her. You're wearing jeans and a university hoodie. I should have specified dress code. Ji-woo looked down at her outfit, then at his tailored coat and expensive watch. I don't have anything that would fit in where you're taking me. You'll fit in anywhere. He said it simply, like it was fact. But if you're uncomfortable, we can go somewhere else. A convenience store. Street food. Wherever you want. The offer surprised her. Really? Ji-woo, I meant what I said. This week is about understanding you. That means going where you're comfortable, eating what you like, seeing your world. He paused. I've lived in mine too long. It's cold there. There was something achingly lonely in those words. Ji-woo found herself saying, the restaurant is fine. As long as you don't mind me looking like I wandered in from the street. I prefer it. You look real. They drove in silence through Seoul's glittering streets. Ji-woo watched the city blur past, the neon signs, the crowds, the life she'd always been part of but never fully noticed. It all felt different now, seen from inside this car, beside this man. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Yes. What happened 5 years ago? You said you stopped feeling. What caused that? Min-Jun's expression hardened. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Se-jin. We were engaged. I thought she loved me. What happened? I found out she was planted by the Choi family. Everything, every smile, every touch, every I love you was a lie designed to get close to me, learn our weaknesses, destroy us from the inside. His voice stayed flat, emotionless, but his hands clenched into fists. She was good. So good I believed her completely. Would have married her. Given her everything. How did you find out? She told me herself. The night before our wedding. She thought she'd won, that I was already too in love to do anything about it. She laughed when she explained how easy I'd been to manipulate. He looked out the window. She was wrong. I did do something about it. Ji-woo's blood ran cold. What did you do? I exiled her. Stripped her of everything the Choi family had promised her, everything she'd sold herself for, and sent her away with nothing. She begged me to kill her instead. Said exile was worse than death. His eyes met Ji-woo's, dark and haunted. I let her live with her failure. Let her family live with their shame. But I killed the part of me that could love. That could trust. That could feel. Until you kissed me like I was just a man. Not a king. Not a weapon. Just me. He reached out, his fingers hovering near her cheek but not quite touching. And I felt everything again. 5 years of frozen emotion thawing all at once. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was also alive, Ji-woo finished softly. Yes. The car pulled up to a restaurant that looked more like a palace. Soft lighting, valet service, the kind of place where meals cost more than her monthly rent. Min-Jun got out and offered his hand. Ji-woo took it, his palm warm and calloused against hers, and let him lead her inside. The maitre d' bowed deeply. Mr. Kang. Your usual table. They were escorted to a private room with a view of the Han River, floor-to-ceiling windows, a table set for two, complete privacy. As soon as the door closed, leaving them alone, Ji-woo felt the weight of the moment. This is your idea of public? She asked, trying to lighten the tension. There are people in the building. That counts. Min-Jun pulled out her chair, and when she sat, he took the seat across from her instead of beside her, giving her space. Tell me something real about you. Not your name or major. Something you don't tell people. Ji-woo twisted her napkin. Why? Because I showed you my wound. Fair trade. She thought about it. About all the safe answers she could give. Then decided to match his honesty with her own. I accepted that dare because I'm terrified of being forgettable. My parents died when I was 16, car accident. After that, I lived with my aunt, but she had her own family, her own life. I was just there. The scholarship girl. The quiet one. I started to feel like a ghost in my own life. She met his eyes. That dare was supposed to prove I was real. That I could do something bold enough to matter. You matter, Min-Jun said quietly. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you kissed a monster because you were tired of being invisible. I know you showed up today even though you were terrified. I know you asked about my pain instead of running from it. He leaned forward. Those things matter, Ji-woo. You matter. Something in her chest cracked open. She blinked rapidly, fighting sudden tears. Don't do that. Do what? Make me feel seen. It's dangerous. Why? Because then I'll start to care about you. And caring about you is probably the stupidest thing I could do. Min-Jun smiled, a real smile this time, small but genuine. Then we're both doing stupid things. Because I already care about you, and I've only known you for a day. A server entered with wine, breaking the moment. They ordered, Min-Jun choosing for both of them when Ji-woo admitted she had no idea what half the menu meant, and fell into easier conversation. He asked about her studies. She asked about his businesses, the legal ones, he clarified with dark humor. He was surprisingly easy to talk to once the ice thawed, sharp and intelligent with a dry wit that caught her off guard. You're not what I expected, she admitted over dessert. What did you expect? Colder. Crueler. More monstrous. Give it time. The monster's still there. But he said it lightly, almost joking. I don't think so. I think the monster is just armor you wear because someone taught you that being human is dangerous. Min-Jun went very still. You sound like a therapist. Psychology major. Occupational hazard. She hesitated, then asked the question burning in her mind. Why me? Really? You could have anyone. Why does it matter that some random student kissed you? Because everyone else wants something from me. Power, money, protection, status. But you just wanted to be brave for 10 seconds. You didn't even know who I was. He looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath. When was the last time someone touched me without an agenda? Kissed me without calculation? I can't remember. Maybe never. And then you did, and it felt like the first real thing that's happened to me in years. Ji-woo's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Hana, are you alive? Should I call the police? Blink twice if you're in danger. She typed back, I'm fine. At dinner. He's not what I expected. Hana, that's what they all say before they end up on the news. JIWO, dramatic much? Hana, one of us has to be realistic. Text me when you get home. And Ji-woo? Be careful with your heart. Men who've been hurt like that don't heal, they just learn new ways to hurt people. Ji-woo pocketed her phone, Hana's warning echoing in her mind. Your friend? Min-Jun asked. Making sure you haven't murdered me yet. Smart friend. She thinks I'm insane for being here. She's probably right. He stood, offering his hand. Come on. There's something I want to show you. Is this the part where you push me off a building? If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. I want something much more complicated from you. He pulled her gently to her feet. I want you to trust me. And terrifyingly, impossibly, Ji-woo realized she was starting to. Have you ever learned someone's painful past and suddenly understood their walls? What's the difference between understanding someone's hurt and trying to fix it? Drop your thoughts below. Min-Jun led her to the restaurant's rooftop terrace, a private space closed to regular guests but apparently open to men who owned half of Seoul. The night air was crisp, the Han River glittering below like a ribbon of stars. This is what you wanted to show me? Ji-woo asked, pulling her hoodie tighter against the cold. A view? No, this. He shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. It was heavy and warm and smelled like him, cedar and something darker, more complex. Close your eyes. That seems like a terrible idea given the circumstances. Trust me. Just for a moment. Against every survival instinct, Ji-woo closed her eyes. The world went dark, and suddenly every other sense sharpened. She heard the distant hum of traffic, felt the wind tangling in her hair, smelled the river and night-blooming flowers from some unseen garden. What do you feel? Min-Jun's voice came from beside her, closer than before. Cold. Nervous. Confused about why you have me standing on a rooftop with my eyes closed. Besides that, what do you feel? Ji-woo took a breath, actually considering the question. Alive. Present. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, even though it makes no sense. Open your eyes. She did. Min-Jun stood close now, his expression unguarded in a way she hadn't seen before. Softer. Almost vulnerable. 5 years ago, Se-jin brought me here, he said quietly. Told me this view was the most beautiful thing in Seoul. I believed her. After I learned the truth, I couldn't look at it without feeling sick. Every beautiful thing became a reminder of how easily I'd been fooled. Why bring me here then? Because I wanted to see if it could be beautiful again. If experiencing it with someone real could rewrite the memory. He turned to face the view, hands gripping the railing. And it is. Beautiful, I mean. For the first time in 5 years, I can look at the city and not feel empty. Ji-woo's heart ached for him. For the man who'd had beauty weaponized against him, who'd learned to see love as a trap. She stepped beside him, their shoulders almost touching. My parents brought me to the Han River every Sunday, she said softly. After they died, I couldn't come here for 2 years. Every sunset reminded me they were gone. But eventually I realized, they'd wanted me to love this city. To find joy in it. Avoiding beautiful things wasn't honoring them. It was just letting grief win. How did you start coming back? Small steps. First, I'd just walk past. Then I'd sit for 5 minutes. Then 10. I'd bring homework and force myself to study here. Eventually, the memories stopped hurting and started feeling like company. Like they were still with me somehow. Min-Jun looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You make healing sound possible. It is possible. It's just slow. And lonely. And sometimes it feels easier to stay broken. It is easier, he agreed. Safer too. Safe isn't the same as alive. No, it's not. He was quiet for a moment, then, I want to show you something else. Something I haven't shown anyone. Another rooftop. My home. Ji-woo's breath caught. Min-Jun, I don't think. Not like that. I'm not, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. I'm terrible at this. At being human. But there's something there I want you to see. Something that explains me better than words can. Every warning bell in Ji-woo's head screamed danger. Going to his home crossed a line. Made this real in ways a restaurant couldn't. But the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he was asking instead of demanding. Okay, she heard herself say. But I need to be home by midnight. I have an early class. Midnight. Like Cinderella. Except instead of a prince, I'm with a monster who's trying very hard to remember how to be human, he finished. I know what I am, Ji-woo. But tonight, just for a few hours, I want to be something else. They drove through Seoul in comfortable silence, the city lights painting patterns across their faces. Ji-woo watched Min-Jun from the corner of her eye, the way his shoulders had relaxed, the almost smile playing at his lips. This version of him felt real. Touchable. Dangerous. His penthouse was in Gangnam, all glass and steel and minimalist luxury. But what struck Ji-woo wasn't the wealth, it was the emptiness. Everything was perfectly arranged, perfectly clean, perfectly lifeless. Like a showroom, not a home. You don't really live here, do you? She asked, turning slowly in the vast living room. You just exist here. Min-Jun paused, his keys still in his hand. No one's ever put it like that before. Where do you actually spend your time? He led her down a hallway to a door she'd initially missed. Inside was a study, but unlike the rest of the penthouse, this room was lived in. Books spilled from shelves, papers covered the desk, a worn leather chair sat by the window. On the walls hung paintings, not expensive art pieces, but simple watercolors of landscapes, seas, mountains. My mother painted these, Min-Jun said quietly, before she left. They're the only things I kept from the house I grew up in. Ji-woo moved closer, studying the paintings. They were beautiful but sad somehow, all empty horizons and distant shores. She left. When I was 12. No explanation, no goodbye. Just gone one morning. My father found a note, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. He touched the frame of a painting, a lighthouse on a stormy coast. I spent years wondering what this was. The marriage? Motherhood? Me? Min-Jun. Sejin knew about this. I told her everything. How my mother's abandonment taught me that women leave, that love is temporary, that trust is for fools. She used it against me. Played the role of the woman who'd never leave, who loved me despite my damage. His laugh was bitter. I guess I'm good at picking people who confirm my worst fears. Ji-woo wanted to touch him, to offer comfort, but she didn't know if he'd accept it. Is that why you agreed to this week? To prove I'll leave too? Maybe. He finally looked at her. Or maybe I'm hoping you'll prove me wrong. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you just met. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't, he turned away. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have brought you here, shouldn't have dumped my damage on you. You should go. I'll have my driver. Min-Jun. Ji-woo caught his arm, feeling the tension coiled in his muscles. I'm not leaving. Not yet. Sit with me. She led him to the leather chair, pushing him gently down, then sat on the floor in front of him, a position that felt less intense than sitting beside him. For a long moment, they just existed in the quiet. Tell me something happy, she said finally. Some memory that doesn't hurt. I'm not sure I have any. Everyone has something, even if it's small. Min-Jun was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, there was a dog. When I was 7. A stray that hung around our neighborhood. I'd sneak it food from the kitchen, and it started waiting for me every day after school. My mother found out and said I couldn't keep feeding it, we weren't pet people. But she'd always make extra rice anyway, and pretend not to notice when I took it. What happened to the dog? Someone adopted it. A family with kids. I was devastated, but my mother said that was love, wanting good things for someone even when it meant losing them. He smiled sadly. She left 4 years later. I wondered if she thought she was doing the same thing, leaving so I could have something better. Ji-woo's throat tightened. Maybe she was just broken and didn't know how to stay. That's not your fault. Logically, I know that. But knowing and feeling are different things. Yeah, they really are. They fell into conversation then, real conversation, the kind that happens at 2 a.m. between people who've run out of small talk. He told her about building his empire, not with pride but with the weariness of someone who'd achieved everything and found it hollow. She told him about her research, about wanting to understand why people hurt each other, as if understanding could make it hurt less. Why psychology? He asked. Because after my parents died, I felt crazy with grief. Like I was broken in ways that couldn't be fixed. My school counselor helped me see that feelings aren't permanent, that pain doesn't mean you're damaged. She pulled his coat tighter around herself. I wanted to be that for someone else. To help people understand their pain isn't who they are. Is that what you're doing with me? Helping me understand my pain? No. I'm just sitting with you while you feel it. That's different. Something in his expression cracked. I haven't had anyone just sit with me in a very long time. Then I'm glad I'm here. Min-Jun slid from the chair to sit beside her on the floor, their backs against the bookshelf. Not touching, but close. Tell me something you've never told anyone. Ji-woo considered lying, giving him something safe. But he'd given her his truth, raw and painful. He deserved the same. Sometimes I'm angry at my parents for dying, she whispered. For leaving me alone. I know it's not fair, they didn't choose to die. But I'm angry anyway. And then I feel guilty for being angry, and it becomes this cycle I can't escape. That's not crazy. That's human. My therapist said the same thing. Doesn't make it feel better. No. But maybe knowing you're not alone in feeling impossible things helps a little. She turned to look at him. In the soft light of the study, he looked younger. Less like the Ice King and more like just Min-Jun, a man carrying too much hurt, trying to figure out how to set it down. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. What do you want from this week? Really? Not the answer you think you should give. The true one. Min-Jun was quiet, his dark eyes searching her face. Then, I want to remember what it feels like to be human. To care about someone without calculating if they'll betray me. To touch someone and have it mean something beyond transaction or conquest. He paused. And I want to know if it's possible for someone like you to look at someone like me and see anything worth saving. I already do, Ji-woo said softly. You shouldn't. You don't know half of what I've done. Maybe not. But I know you brought me to a rooftop to rewrite a painful memory. I know you kept your mother's paintings even though they hurt to look at. I know you fed a stray dog when you were 7. She smiled. Those things count too, Min-Jun. The good doesn't erase the bad, but the bad doesn't erase the good either. He looked at her like she'd said something profound. Or maybe like she'd said something he desperately needed to hear. It's past midnight, he said finally. Your early class. Right. Cinderella needs to go home. Before she turns into a pumpkin. Before she forgets this is temporary and starts believing in fairy tales. Min-Jun helped her to her feet, his hand warm and steady in hers. They stood there for a moment, close enough that she could count his heartbeats if she pressed her palm to his chest. Thank you, he said. For tonight. For listening. For not running. Thank you for trusting me with your hurt. He walked her to the car, and during the ride to her apartment, their hands somehow found each other in the space between them, not holding, just touching. Fingertips against palms, a connection that asked nothing and offered everything. When they reached her building, Min-Jun got out to walk her to her door. You don't have to, Ji-woo started. I want to. They climbed the 3 flights in silence. At her door, she turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Day 1, she said. Complete. 6 more to go. 6 more. Ji-woo. His hand came up, hovering near her cheek the way it had in the car days ago. Can I? Yes. He cupped her face so gently it made her chest ache. Not possessive. Not demanding. Just tender. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and she felt him memorizing the moment. The shape of her face, the warmth of her skin, the trust in her eyes. Then he leaned forward and pressed his lips to her forehead. Soft. Reverent. The kind of kiss that meant I see you and thank you and please don't disappear. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Good night, Ji-woo. Good night, Min-Jun. She watched him walk away, his coat still wrapped around her shoulders, and knew with terrible certainty. 6 days wouldn't be enough. A lifetime might not be enough. And falling for the Ice King might be the best and worst thing she'd ever done. 3 days passed in a blur of stolen moments. Coffee before her morning classes. Lunch in hidden restaurants where no one knew his name. Late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn, talking about everything and nothing. Childhood dreams, favorite books, the small scars that make a person real. Ji-woo felt herself falling, and for the first time in her careful calculated life, she didn't try to stop it. On day 4, Min-Jun picked her up after her lecture with something new in his expression. Tension she hadn't seen since that first cafe meeting. What's wrong? She asked, sliding into the car. Nothing. I just need you to meet someone. Min-Jun. Please. It's important. They drove to a private club in Gangnam, the kind with no sign and a guest list that read like Forbes Korea. Min-Jun's hand found hers as they entered, his grip tight enough to betray his nerves. Inside a private room sat a man in his 60s. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile. Min-Jun's entire body language changed in his presence, shoulders straightening, expression cooling. Father, Min-Jun said. This is Park Ji-woo. The man, Kang Dae-young, head of the Kang family, studied her with the intensity of a jeweler examining a questionable diamond. So you're the girl who's been distracting my son. Ji-woo's stomach dropped. She hadn't known they were meeting his father. Hadn't prepared for this. Nice to meet you, sir, she managed. Sit. It wasn't a request. They sat. Min-Jun's jaw was clenched so tight Ji-woo worried he'd crack a tooth. My son tells me you're a graduate student. Psychology. No family connections, no business interests, no understanding of our world. Dae-young's voice was pleasant, but his words cut. Tell me, Ms. Park, what exactly do you want from my son? Father, Min-Jun warned. It's a fair question. Beautiful young women don't typically spend time with men like Min-Jun for their sparkling personality. Ji-woo felt Min-Jun flinch beside her. She wanted to defend him, to tell his father he was wrong, Min-Jun was kind and hurt and trying so hard to be human again. But Dae-young's cold stare froze the words in her throat. I don't want anything, she said quietly. We're just getting to know each other. Nothing? How refreshing. How convenient. Dae-young pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a bank transfer form. 500 million won. Enough to pay off any student debts, set you up comfortably, ensure you never have to work if you're smart with it. All you have to do is walk away and never contact my son again. The room went silent. Ji-woo stared at the number, more money than she'd see in 10 years of work. Life-changing money. Freedom money. Blood money. Dad, stop this right now, Min-Jun's voice was dangerous. I'm protecting you. Again. Just like with Se-jin, you're letting your feelings cloud your judgment. This girl is nobody. Nothing. And she's making you weak. She's not Se-jin. No? Then what is she? What could she possibly offer you that's worth the risk? Worth making you vulnerable again? Dae-young's eyes never left Ji-woo's face. Take the money, Ms. Park. Be smart. Men like my son don't have happy endings with girls like you. You'll either get hurt, or you'll hurt him. Either way, it ends badly. Ji-woo's hands trembled in her lap. She thought about that money, about never worrying about rent, about finishing her degree without working 3 jobs, about security. But she also thought about Min-Jun's forehead kiss. About him showing her his mother's paintings. About the way he'd said, I want to remember what it feels like to be human. I don't want your money, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. And I'm not Se-jin. I'm not playing games. I'm not using him. She looked at Min-Jun, whose expression was unreadable. I just care about him. How touching. Dae-young's smile was cruel. Tell me, does he know about your meeting with Park Sung-ho last week? Ji-woo's blood turned to ice. What? Professor Park Sung-ho. Head of the psychology department. You met him for coffee 3 days ago. Dae-young pulled up a photo on his phone, her and Professor Park at a campus cafe, talking. What were you discussing, Ms. Park? What information about my son were you selling? That was about my thesis. He's my advisor. Convenient. Especially since Professor Park has ties to the Choi family. Se-jin's family. Min-Jun went rigid beside her. Is this true? You met with someone connected to the Choice. I didn't know, I had no idea. Ji-woo turned to him desperate. Min-Jun, I was meeting my thesis advisor. That's all. I didn't even know he had any connection to. She's lying, Dae-young said calmly. Just like Se-jin lied. Just like they all lie. Wake up, Min-Jun. You're being played. Again. I'm not lying. Ji-woo's voice cracked. Min-Jun, please. You know me. You know I wouldn't. But Min-Jun's expression had gone cold. The Ice King was back, and the man she'd been falling for had disappeared behind those walls. Did you know? His voice was flat. About Professor Park's connections? No. I swear I didn't. But you met with him. While you were spending time with me. Getting close to me. Learning about me. For my thesis. Min-Jun, this is insane. Is it? He stood, and Ji-woo had never felt so small. 5 years ago, I ignored the warnings. Believed what I wanted to believe. Trusted someone who made me feel human. His eyes were dead again, empty. I won't make that mistake twice. This isn't the same. Take the money, Ji-woo. My father's right. This was never going to end well. He headed for the door. Min-Jun, please. Ji-woo stood, tears streaming down her face. Just let me explain. He paused at the door, his back to her. For a moment, she thought he'd turn around. Thought he'd see the truth in her eyes. Instead he said, Goodbye, Park Ji-woo. Thank you for reminding me why I don't let people in. Then he was gone. Ji-woo stood frozen, the weight of Dae-young's cold stare pressing down on her. The bank transfer form still glowed on the table, a monument to everything that had just shattered. Smart choice would be to take the money and disappear, Dae-young said. Foolish choice would be to chase him. I wonder which you'll make. Ji-woo looked at the money. Looked at the door where Min-Jun had disappeared. Looked at her trembling hands and the tears falling onto them. She'd promised to show him that trust was possible. That not everyone leaves. That love could be real. But he'd just proven he could never truly believe it. And maybe Dae-young was right. Maybe this had always been doomed. Without another word, Ji-woo walked out, leaving the money, leaving the room, leaving behind the fragile thing they'd been building together. Behind her, she heard Dae-young make a phone call. It's done. He won't be a problem anymore. And Ji-woo realized too late, this had been a setup. A test designed to break them. And they'd failed spectacularly. Ji-woo didn't go to class the next day. Or the day after. She stayed in her apartment, replaying every moment, every conversation, trying to find where she'd gone wrong. Her phone stayed silent, No texts from Min-Jun, no calls, nothing. Just the deafening quiet of something broken. On the third day, Hannah finally broke down her door. Okay, that's it. You're showering, eating, and telling me what happened. She physically pulled Ji-woo from bed. And before you say you're fine, you're not. You look like a ghost. Over ramen that Ji-woo couldn't taste, she told Hannah everything. The dates. The vulnerability. His father's trap. The way Min-Jun had looked at her like she was Sejin all over again. So let me get this straight, Hannah said slowly. His psycho father set you up, used your innocent meeting with your advisor as proof you're a spy, and Min-Jun just believed it? His ex destroyed him. He's terrified of being hurt again. That doesn't give him the right to hurt you. Ji-woo, he didn't even let you explain. Didn't trust you enough to hear your side. That's not love, that's cowardice. The word hit Ji-woo like a slap. He's not a coward. He's just broken? Damaged? Yeah, I know. But so are you. Your parents died. You know what abandonment feels like. But you still chose to trust him, to be vulnerable with him. He couldn't do the same. Hannah squeezed her hand. You can't fix him, babe. And you shouldn't have to prove you're not a liar just to earn basic trust. Ji-woo knew Hannah was right. But it didn't make it hurt less. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Unknown, it's Mr. Kang's second. I need you to know something. The meeting with his father, it was orchestrated. Dae-young has been trying to isolate Min-Jun for months. You are getting too close, making him too human. That's dangerous for business. Unknown, Professor Park has no ties to the Choi family. That was a lie. I have proof. But Min-Jun won't see me. Won't listen to anyone. He's locked himself in his penthouse and won't come out. Unknown, if you care about him at all, don't let it end like this. He needs to know the truth. Even if he's too stupid to ask for it. Ji-woo stared at the messages, her heart pounding. What is it? Hannah asked. Proof. That I'm not a liar. That his father set us up. She looked up. I could send it to him. Clear my name. Or I could let him go. Like he asked. Stop fighting for someone who won't fight for us. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do? Ji-woo thought about Min-Jun's forehead kiss. The way he'd said thank you for sitting with my pain. The vulnerability in his eyes when he'd shown her his mother's paintings. Then she thought about how quickly he'd shut down. How easily he believed the worst of her. How 5 years of walls had slammed back up in seconds. I don't know, she whispered. Part of me wants to march to his penthouse and force him to listen. To prove I'm not Sejin. But another part thinks, if he can't trust me after everything we shared, maybe we're not meant to survive. Both parts can be true, Hannah said gently. You can want to fight for him and also recognize you deserve someone who fights for you too. Meanwhile, Min-Jun sat in his study surrounded by his mother's paintings, a bottle of whiskey and 3 days of regret. Jae had been calling non-stop. His father had called once, satisfied. And Min-Jun had ignored them all, replaying that moment in the club. Ji-woo's face when he'd walked away, the tears, the desperation in her voice. This isn't the same. But wasn't it? The setup was identical. Beautiful girl. Unexpected connection. Evidence of betrayal. The only difference was this time, he'd walked away before she could laugh at him. Except Ji-woo hadn't laughed. She'd cried. She'd begged him to listen. Sejin had never begged. His phone buzzed. Jae again. Min-Jun finally answered. What? Sir, I have information about Ms. Park. Professor Park Sung-ho has no connections to the Choi family. Your father lied. He had our surveillance team create fake connection documents. I have proof. Min-Jun's blood went cold. What? It was a setup. Your father wanted her gone. Wanted you isolated again. And we helped him do it. I'm sorry, sir. I should have questioned the intel, but he's the head of the family and I. Min-Jun hung up. His hands shook as he pulled up Ji-woo's contact. 3 days of silence. 3 days of believing the worst of her. 3 days of being exactly what his father wanted, alone, controlled, safe. But safe wasn't alive. Ji-woo had taught him that. He called. It went straight to voicemail. She blocked him, or turned off her phone, or finally taken his advice and erased him from her life. Good, the Ice King whispered. Safer this way. But the man Ji-woo had helped him remember, the one who fed stray dogs and kept his mother's paintings and wanted so desperately to be human again, that man was screaming. Min-Jun stood, grabbed his keys, and made a choice. He'd built walls to protect himself. Built an empire on ice and control. Spent 5 years proving he didn't need anyone. But he needed her. And if she'd let him, he'd spend the rest of his life proving she could trust him to never walk away again. Even if it meant tearing down every wall he'd built. Even if it meant defying his father. Even if it meant admitting he'd been wrong, afraid, and too damaged to recognize love when it kissed him in a crowded club. He had 1 week with Ji-woo. 3 days were gone, wasted on fear. He wouldn't waste another second. Ji-woo was packing Min-Jun's coat, the one she'd never returned, into a box to mail back when someone pounded on her door. She opened it to find Min-Jun, soaking wet from rain she hadn't realized had started, chest heaving like he'd run the entire way. "You lied," she said flatly, moving to close the door. His hand shot out, stopping it. I know I did. And I know I have no right to be here. But please, just give me 5 minutes. Then I'll leave and never bother you again if that's what you want." Something in his voice, the desperation, the pain, made her step back. He entered slowly, like he was afraid she'd vanish. "My father lied," he said without preamble. "About Professor Park. About the Choi connections. About all of it. He orchestrated the whole thing to drive you away because you were making me weak. Making me human. Making me his again instead of my own person." Ji-woo's hands clenched. "And you believed him. Over me." "I did. Because believing the worst was easier than risking being destroyed again." He took a shaky breath. "But I was wrong. So fucking wrong. You're not Sei-jin. You never were. And I should have trusted what I felt instead of what I feared." "Feelings aren't enough, Min-Jun. Trust is built on more than feelings." "You're right. Which is why I'm here, knowing you might slam the door in my face. Knowing I might have broken this beyond repair." He pulled out his phone, showing her Jay's evidence, documents, testimonies, proof that his father had fabricated everything. "I'm not asking you to trust me again. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for a chance to earn it back. However long that takes." Ji-woo stared at the proof, her heart warring with her head. "You walked away. You didn't even let me explain." "I was terrified. Of being vulnerable. Of being fooled again. Of caring so much about you that losing you would destroy me." His voice cracked. "But losing you anyway, by my own hand, my own fear, that's destroying me too. At least if I trusted you, if I'd fought for us, I could have lost you knowing I tried. Instead, I just gave up. On you. On us. On the first real thing I've felt in 5 years." Tears burned Ji-woo's eyes. "How do I know you won't do it again? Next time something scares you, next time someone plants doubt, how do I know you won't just shut me out?" "You don't. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'm still learning how to trust, how to be human again. But I can promise I'll fight my fear instead of fighting you. I can promise that next time, if there is a next time, I'll listen before I run." He stepped closer. "And I can promise that for the first time in my life, I want to be brave more than I want to be safe." "Because of me?" "Because of who I am when I'm with you. Someone who feeds stray dogs instead of building empires on fear. Someone who can look at beautiful things and feel joy instead of pain. Someone worth saving." His hand came up, hovering near her face like that first night. "You asked me what I wanted from this week. I said I wanted to remember what it feels like to be human. But that's not the whole truth." "What's the whole truth?" "I wanted you. From the moment you kissed me like I was just a man. From the moment you sat with my pain without trying to fix it. From the moment you looked at me and saw something worth caring about." His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. "I'm in love with you, Park Ji-woo. Completely. Terrifyingly. In the kind of love that makes safety impossible and life worth living." Ji-woo's breath caught. "You barely know me. I know you accepted a dare because you were tired of being invisible. I know you study psychology because you want to help people understand their pain. I know you're angry at your parents for dying and feel guilty for the anger. I know you taste like cherry lip gloss and courage." He smiled through his own tears. "And I know that in 1 week, you made me want to live again. That's enough for me. Min-Jun. I'm not asking you to love me back. Not yet. I'm just asking for another chance. To prove that I can be the man you made me want to become. To prove that trust is possible, even for someone as broken as me." Ji-woo looked at him, really looked. At the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear he was pushing through, the way he was literally trembling with the effort of being this open. 3 days ago, he'd walked away. But now he'd come back. Admitted he was wrong. Brought proof. Asked instead of demanded. That was growth. That was trying. "One condition," she said finally. "Anything. You start therapy. Real therapy. Not with me, I can't be your therapist and your, whatever this is. But you work on your trust issues, your abandonment trauma, all of it. Because I can't fix you, Min-Jun. Only you can do that." "Done. I'll start tomorrow. And when you get scared, not if when, you talk to me instead of running. Even if it's messy. Even if it's ugly. We face it together." "Together," he agreed. "I promise. And no more secrets. No more walls. If we're doing this, we're really doing this." "Yes. God, yes." He cupped her face in both hands now, his forehead resting against hers, an echo of that goodbye kiss that had broken her heart. "Does this mean?" "It means I'm probably insane. It means I'm giving you a second chance you might not deserve. It means I'm terrified you'll hurt me again. She pulled back to meet his eyes. But it also means I'm in love with you too. And I'm choosing to believe that love is braver than fear. Min-Jun kissed her then, not like the dare in the club, not like the gentle forehead kiss at her door, but like a man drowning who just found air. Desperate and grateful and reverent all at once. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he whispered against her lips, "Thank you. For the second chance. For seeing me. For being brave enough for both of us until I learned how. Just don't make me regret it." "I won't. I swear I won't." He kissed her again, softer this time. "I love you, Park Ji-woo. My brave, reckless, beautiful contradiction. I love you too, Kang Min-Jun. My broken, healing, impossible monster. Not a monster anymore. You killed him the moment you kissed me." "No. You killed him yourself. I just reminded you how." 6 months later. Ji-woo defended her thesis on a Tuesday morning, something about trauma, trust, and the psychology of emotional healing. Min-Jun sat in the back row, pride radiating from him in waves. After, they walked along the Han River, hands intertwined. "Your father still hates me," Ji-woo observed. "My father can learn to live with disappointment. I've moved out of his control. Started legitimate businesses. Fired everyone involved in that setup." Min-Jun squeezed her hand. "And I've told him if he ever tries to manipulate me through someone I love again, I'll walk away from the family entirely." That must have gone over well. "He threatened to disown me. I said that was his choice." Min-Jun stopped, turning to face her. "You were right that night. Safe isn't the same as alive. And I'd rather be alive with you than safe without you." Ji-woo smiled, standing on her toes to kiss him. "Look at you, being all emotionally healthy. My therapist is very proud. Says I'm making excellent progress." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere, and you're stuck with me. Promise." "Promise." As the sun set over Seoul, turning the Han River to gold, Min-Jun pulled Ji-woo close and thought about the girl who'd kissed him on a dare. The one who'd been brave enough to see past the Ice King to the broken man beneath. The one who'd taught him that healing was possible. That trust could be rebuilt. That love, real love, was worth every terrifying, vulnerable, beautiful moment. "What are you thinking about?" Ji-woo asked. "That I'm grateful you accepted that dare. Even though it started as something reckless and stupid? Especially because of that. The best things in life usually do." She laughed, and the sound made his chest ache with joy, a feeling he'd once thought lost forever. "I love you," he said, because saying it never got old. "I love you too," she replied, because she meant it every time. And in that moment, with the Seoul skyline glittering behind them and their future stretching ahead full of possibility, they both knew. Some dares change everything. Some kisses wake up monsters. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to trust and vulnerable enough to love, monsters remember how to be human again. Have you ever taken a chance on someone broken and watched them heal? Or been that broken person given a second chance? This story is for everyone still learning that love is braver than fear. Share your thoughts below, because we're all healing from something, and none of us have to do it alone.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.